Man, we went from a guy who spited Disney, created a studio I have respect for that holds multiple successful franchises, and then we get to this mess. Mr. Katzenberg, sir, are you okay? Who made it? Where did they come from? Why did it become a big success? Or how did it all go wrong? Where are they now? And what inspired it in the first place? These are questions that most likely form when you wonder about the nature of the entertainment you consume. I want to make you appreciate the entertainment you're watching, or understand the goings-on that led to the current outcome. Pop open some leftovers, open your mind, and please enjoy the long and short of it. Okay everyone, I'm going to be frank with you for a minute. I built the rules and formulas for the rest of my video ideas with a clear concept in mind, and this was the last-minute addition. Also, speaking as someone who, while at school, history was not my best subject, I might sound a little more awkward and robotic than normal. If I make any mistakes, let me know down in the comments and I'll fix them in future videos. For the rules I have right now, I'll discuss the person or people who kickstarted the chain of events, the major turning points of the company, person, or project, and where all of them are currently. So without further ado, I'll try my best not to fudge this up, folks. December 21st, 1950, in New York City, Jeffrey Katzenberg was born into a Jewish family. His mother Anne, an artist, and father, Walter Katzenberg, a stockbroker. For Jeffrey Katzenberg's education, he graduated from the Ethical Culture Fieldston School in 1969, while also doing volunteer work for the 103rd Mayor of New York, John Lindsay, in his teenage years. Fast forward to 1984, where Michael Eisner, former president of Paramount Pictures, became chief executive officer of the Walt Disney Company. Katzenberg, who landed a job at, and worked at Paramount for almost a decade up until then, made his way up from an assistant producer to being president of production. At this time, Eisner brought Frank Wells and Jeffrey Katzenberg along with him, and the two respectively served as the president and chairman of Walt Disney Studios. And with Katzenberg's oversight, Touchstone Pictures and Touchstone Television, which are owned by Disney, with the former being defunct as of September 2nd, 2016, and the latter still being alive and kicking, had prospered. Katzenberg was also tasked with bringing Disney out of their tailspin that was Disney's Dark Age. And without tanking the watch time, that was essentially the period of 1967, where Walt Disney passed away a year prior, to 1988. This was when Disney's movies weren't performing as well as they'd hoped, and to top it off, Don Bluth and 11 other animators left to form Don Bluth Productions. In layman's terms, the Walt Disney Company was directionless for a decade, and everyone who saw the waver in confidence jumped ship. However, under Katzenberg's management, the animation department created what we know today as the Disney Renaissance. Animated movies from 1989 to 1999 that brought Disney out of the funk they were experiencing and were critical and/or highly grossing successes for the company. But because of an internal conflict at Disney, Katzenberg left in 1994. Between the period of early 1922 to late October of that fateful year, tensions were mounting. Part of what was going on was Katzenberg, if my sources are correct, was taking the lion's share of credit for the success of Disney's animated movies. Now, if this is in the context of taking credit away from the creators, don't do that. The creative process, paraphrasing what Rebel Taxi has said in a few of his videos, is a group project between many creative minds. You are the producer or executive in charge of production. I won't discredit the fact that you held power over keeping the production of Disney's animated movies on schedule and the like, but you aren't the creative force behind the project. You can't take credit for something you didn't or can't do. Though if this was in the context of taking credit away from anyone but the creators, Mr. Katzenberg, you still shouldn't have done that. Hogging credit is hogging credit, no matter which way you slice it. Getting back to the events at hand, what made matters worse is in 1993, Katzenberg wanted Frank Wells' position as president of the company, which would move Wells to vice chairman. From The Hollywood Reporter, quoting Eisner and Katzenberg, Eisner replied that Wells would feel hurt in that scenario, and according to Katzenberg, Eisner assured him that he would get the job if Wells vacated the position. End quote. We now enter 1994. Frank Wells passed away April 3rd of that year in a helicopter crash returning from a heli-skiing trip in Nevada's Ruby Mountains. Though instead of Katzenberg getting promoted to president, Eisner assumed both roles in the company. The reason being is that Roy Disney, Walt Disney's cousin and an influential member of the board, wasn't a big fan of Katzenberg, as in Katzenberg wouldn't treat him with the respect he deserves. And if Eisner promoted Katzenberg to president, Roy Disney would have threatened a proxy fight. To clear that term up, I'm paraphrasing what a proxy fight is, according to the Wikipedia page. In business terms, a proxy fight, proxy contest, proxy battle is an unfriendly contest for control over an organization. It happens when a stockholder of a corporation dislikes an aspect of corporate governance, and it mostly affects directorial and management positions. Corporate activists attempt to persuade shareholders to be a proxy representative of the activist in order to install a new management for numerous reasons. Essentially, Roy Disney was going to use his power within the company to nudge Katzenberg off a metaphorical cliff if Eisner attempted to make Katzenberg the new president of Disney, with the crescendo of tension between Katzenberg, Eisner, and Disney, resulting in Katzenberg leaving the company in October of 1994, 4 months after The Lion King's release, upon completing his contract, but not before taking one last swing at the Disney company and sued them for money he believed he was owed, quoting The Guardian, and settled out of court for an estimated $250 million in 1999. End quote. This marks the beginning of DreamWorks. As 1994 was reaching its end, Katzenberg joined forces with Steven Spielberg and David Geffen to create DreamWorks SKG. The SKG, by the way, stands for Spielberg, Katzenberg, and Geffen. Man, if only Geffen had his last name ending in Berg, then they could have been known as the Berg Brothers! I'm not gonna pass away peacefully. To build up DreamWorks' talent base, Katzenberg recruited animation staff from Disney, while Spielberg brought some artists from his London-based studio, Amblimation, in 1995. However, as DreamWorks was putting together their first two feature-length movies, Ants and Prince of Egypt, Amblimation shut down in 1997 after the studio's last production, Balto, and resulted in the rest of the artists joining DreamWorks. For some quick context, I won't reiterate the full story of the Ants and a Bug's Life situation, as enough of you have probably already heard it, but to quickly fill in everyone who doesn't know, when Katzenberg was still with Disney, he met with John Lasseter of Pixar, yeah, that Lasseter, and obtained knowledge of A Bug's Life. So as Katzenberg left Disney and co-founded DreamWorks, he used that knowledge to put Ants into production, releasing it to the public October 2nd, 1998, a month earlier than A Bug's Life, releasing November 25th. Unfortunately, both DreamWorks movies didn't do so well at the box office. They did well in future physical sales or by critical analysis, but since a studio bases their metric of success on the profit they make from the box office, yeah, DreamWorks certainly hit a snag on their debut. Fortunately, for our first big turning point, Shrek, the project DreamWorks animators were put onto if they didn't meet the demands of The Prince of Egypt, reached critical and financial success that far surpassed both movies. And right up until 2004, DreamWorks had a mix of 2D animated and 3D animated movies alongside a partnership with Aardman Animations doing stop-motion movies. The next major turning point was their last traditionally 2D animated movie, being Sinbad, Legend of the Seven Seas. Factoring in that it did not do too well in a string of their last 3 animated films, and also how it took a grand story of Arabic origin and had overwritten parts of it with Greek mythology, yeah, that nailed the coffin shut on their 2D department. With all of this happening, DreamWorks stopped making 2D animated films, and I am paraphrasing Katzenberg's words from 20 years back, traditional hand-drawn animation is in the past. Computer-generated 3D animated movies are the future. Getting back on track, on May 19th, 2004, this marked the release of Shrek 2, and one of DreamWorks' highest-grossing films. Within the same year, Katzenberg was spearheading the new department, DreamWorks Animation SKG, while Spielberg and Geffen stayed on board as investors and consultants. Okay folks, I'm going through some of the events from the past 20 years of DreamWorks at a reasonable pace, because I value your time on this crumbling ball of mud run by old farts. January 31st, 2006, DreamWorks Animation entered a distribution agreement with Paramount Pictures, because Paramount acquired their parent company, DreamWorks SKG. The distribution agreement was that DreamWorks produce 13 new animated feature films, or when December 31st, 2012 rolled around, they stopped, as this was when the agreement was scheduled to expire. During the same year, Aardman's partnership ended with DreamWorks Animation, under what my sources tell me, creative differences, leaving 2 out of 5 movies they had agreed upon doing out the window. DreamWorks still had co-ownership of the rights to Chicken Run and Flushed Away, but they were only able to retain the worldwide distribution rights to Wallace & Gromit: Curse of the Were-Rabbit. In 2008, DreamWorks Animation started branching out its production capabilities to Bangalore, India, establishing a special unit in the French-owned Technicolor. Technicolor owns the unit, but DreamWorks hires and trains animators who then contribute to their projects, like their work on the first Puss in Boots movie. In July 2012, DreamWorks Animation acquired Classic Media from a bid and was rebranded as DreamWorks Classics. In August of the same year, Oriental DreamWorks, now known as Pearl Studio as of 2018, was formed in Shanghai to develop original Chinese entertainment. In 2013, DreamWorks Animation acquired the intellectual property of the Trolls franchise from the Damn family and Damn Things. They also have exclusive worldwide merchandising rights, barring Scandinavia, as Damn Things is the licensor. Oh, and in May of the same year, DreamWorks Animation also entered a deal with Netflix to produce original content on the platform. In 2014, DreamWorks announced DreamWorks Press, a publishing division for print and digital books. In June, they acquired the rights to Felix the Cat from Felix the Cat Productions. And in December, they joined the television broadcasting business. On April 28, 2016, our third turning point occurred, as NBC Universal under Comcast discussed the formal acquisition of DreamWorks Animation. Katzenberg would still remain active as head of DreamWorks New Media, but was to relinquish control to Chris Meledandri of Illumination. On June 21st, the U.S. Department of Justice approved of the acquisition, and finally on August 22nd, the purchase closed. In the beginning of 2017, Katzenberg stepped down as head of DreamWorks New Media, and within the same month, raised funds for a firm called Winder Co. On November 6, 2018, Meledandri, alongside Universal and DreamWorks, would work together to revive the Shrek franchise with the intention to bring back the original cast. And if I'm reading this correctly, Puss in Boots: The Last Wish is the first of that revival. Lastly, and our final turning point, during October of last year, DreamWorks Animation began moving their production of animated films away from their in-house campus of Glendale, California, to outside studios. I'm not entirely sure of what the whole situation is, but it concerns layoffs. So to make an educated assumption, with how the entertainment industry was and is laying off workers en masse to keep themselves afloat in an environment that can't sustain repetitive short-term goals, it's not surprising this is happening. In other words, and for another video, one does not simply speed up the entertainment industry. Oh, yeah, and Katzenberg during 2018 to 2020 tried to enter the video streaming market with Quibi, but to provide an analogy as to what happened, it went down like the Hindenburg. If you want to know more, then I suggest you check out Ordinary Things video on Quibi down in the description. We went from a man spiting Disney to getting his revenge with a studio formed by entertainment veterans to the changing of various hands, and we're here. For now. So I suppose I should list out where everyone and everything is. Katzenberg is campaign co-chair of Joe Biden's re-election campaign, and aside from that, I have no idea what else this man is doing. Spielberg is still making movies, though I don't know what he has planned as of this year. Geffen left to DreamWorks in 2008 and hasn't touched animation as far as I know, but if his Wikipedia article is anything to go by, he's donating to schools and is probably playing with his yachts, and still causing massive pollution with them too. As for DreamWorks, I loved Orion in the Dark, I'm excited for Kung Fu Panda 4, If Dogman is anything like the Captain Underpants movie, it should be a fun experience. Fingers crossed Shrek 5 and Madagascar 4 don't fry my synaptic nerves via massive whiplash. I don't care for Boss Baby 3, I never watched 1, 2, or the Netflix show, and hopefully never will. And everyone, please don't hate watch the new Megamind projects. They're going to be bad, but giving them more attention is adding fuel to the metaphorical fire. I don't have malice or contempt for DreamWorks. I wish from the bottom of my heart that they stay around for the next 60 years and are still making wonderful animation. I love a handful of the franchises they cultivate and the films that come out over my lifetime, though I won't put on the rose-tinted glasses and say everything is perfect. There are some less than stellar projects they've made over their lifetime, but that's like everything. Disney, Nickelodeon, Warner Brothers, everyone has their achievements and their failures. I do agree that DreamWorks needs to find their own footing and roll with it, but for now, let's focus on surviving and enjoying the next decade so we can witness that change come to fruition. Let's face it, I can't provide insight and perspective on entertainment to you guys if the world goes topsy-turvy tomorrow morning. Alright, the schedule is back to normal going into March. Oh, and the reason I re-uploaded my Psychonauts video is so I could plug in some video game music. I thought I could do 4 videos in a month, and this learning experience has taught me I was being a fool! And I'm sorry if these videos seem rushed. I'm trying to hold to my word, and I realize that mistake way too late into production. I'm Mr. J, and I'm tired. If you guys need me, I'll be playing Splatoon 3 Side Order, and hopefully some Salmon Run with my friends, while scarfing down pizza like the bear that I am. Now, if everyone will excuse me, I'm going to pass out on the floor.